Has anybody else noticed that all Trump supporters are submissive gay men with homophobia who suffer from homophobia? Every Trumputineer I've ever encountered has been a submissive gay man who suffers from homophobia. And of course, there's nothing wrong with being a submissive gay man. It's a beautiful thing. I would probably be one if I was gay, at least a lot of the time. But there is something wrong with homophobia, and it's a social disease. It's rampant in our world and society, and it shows um, what some of the risks of homophobia are, that these people end up being Trump supporters. Not that everybody who's uh, gay and also homophobic will be a Trump supporter, but if everybody who's a Trump supporter is actually gay and homophobic, then it might help us fix the problem by discussing what it is. So I'm not trying to shame anybody, just trying to talk about this very real and important problem so we can fix it. Now, one of the ways you can see this happening is they love Trump in a way that they've never loved anyone before, that they've never been able to love a woman. And it's like, this is partly because, the being able to love Trump in this context is okay. It's a context where it's okay to love a man. But more than that, it's the same reason that Trump loves Putin, is they say they want a strong man because they can't admit that they want a strong man in their life, and that's really what they're craving. And so they fulfill that need with a strong man that they can love and respect and honor without admitting that it's a gay love for that strong man. But more importantly than this, they have a issue where, because there's a problem, there's a major problem. The problem isn't that they're gay, the problem is that they're homophobic, but they can't recognize that as a problem. And so they're looking for who to blame the problem on. They're always looking for who outside is the problem. Now you can see this in Putin. Putin says there's no gay people in Russia. And then he wants to take Ukraine and then do whatever, like, they did in World War II Germany, to rid Ukraine of gay people. But that's not going to be enough either. He's going to want to take Europe and then try to rid Europe of gay people, and on, because he has to make sure that the gay people are as far away from him as possible. That's the issue with homophobia, is they're afraid they're going to enjoy it. They're afraid that the things they fantasize about, they're going to enjoy. Now this brings us to the other side. I mean, of course, like, J.D. Vance makes all this really obvious, but like, I've kind of gained it from all the comments from all the Trumputineers I interact with, and how they often go to these attacks, these assault type of attacks, of a intimate nature, that I end up having to say to them, your fantasies are yours. Because to point out that for them to come up with these phrases and ideas, it shows something about them, not something about me. So for instance, they have to put out these attacks. And I'm sure that gay people who are open about being gay also have homoerotic fantasies, but they either keep them to themselves or tell people who want to hear them. They tell, because they're fine with being gay, so they'll tell somebody else who wants to hear their fantasy about what their fantasy is. These people always have these fantasies that, by writing their fantasy in a comment and directing it towards you as an attack, because it's not consensual, it's something you've told them over and over again you don't want to hear, but by writing these types of harassing messages, that's their kink, or that's their way of saying that you're the one who's gay because you're the one reading this homoerotic comment I made about you that came from their own head. So it's like trying to project upon others, trying to blame others for their issue is the root of the problem. Then they're allowed to feel this way because Trump feels this way, and they get to identify with Trump. The other thing they do is try to hyper masculinize or hyper machismo by violating women, for one thing, or even if it's consensual, doing that as much as possible, which is never fulfilling to them, but they're trying to, and basically hurting other people's chances of having relationships by having bad relationships with people because they're not having the relationship that they would actually prefer. Again, externalizing their problems onto other people, mostly being susceptible to the programming of a tyrant. But Trump is doing the same thing. They can identify with Trump because they're like, well, he's, a man. He's the man that I want to be like, because they don't look at him as gay, not knowing about the people that he paid settlement money to, who you can guess what gender they are and why I bring it up in this context. You probably can't guess their ages. But point being that they want to identify with a strong man. They want to have a strong man in their life, and then they try to be that strong man. They try to alpha it up. So if the manosphere just admitted that it was actually Grinder, or actually, should be like the social version of Grinder, and they should just accept who they are, we could really diffuse this problem. If instead of directing their hate and their issues towards you or anyone who doesn't want to hear it, they just talk to each other in the context of recognizing that they're actually gay and there's nothing wrong with that, that can help cure their homophobia. They can actually have meaningful and good relationships instead of this weird relationship they all have with Trump. And we can solve this problem. We can diffuse the power that Putin and Trump have gained from hijacking the repressed energy of gay people who suffer from homophobia. So hopefully this makes some sense, or tag people in comments to help explain it or understand whether this theory is true or not, or if you know of any counterexamples, anybody that proves it's not true. I guess there are women who support Trump. I've never met one, but I guess I've seen examples on TV. Whether they fall into, there's log cabin Republicans, there's gay Republicans who I assume maybe fall into the same type of pattern because there's something else they feel ashamed about, being rich or being a traitor or something like that. They feel ashamed about that they're compensating this way, and being gay gives them that tokenism that Republicans can extend to all sorts of different categories of people who will do their off-brand white supremacy, and that makes them feel special, something like that. There's other examples, but you'd have to admit they're the outliers to the core, the base, or the massive number of people who support Trump who are submissive gay men who are also homophobic. And that's the problem. It's the homophobic part that needs to be fixed, because then we'd be living in a beautiful world if people could just be who they are instead of being ashamed who they are and having to have a tyrant kind of to assist their ego or to project their ego upon, and then projecting all the things they feel ashamed about upon other people and demonizing the rest of the world because they can't just accept who they really are, is creating a huge problem. So let's stop it. Thanks. And thanks for joining what I call the Pillar Revolution. We can do it from bed. We can do it with love. And the Fairy Liberation Front, liberating fairies everywhere of all types, and fairies are everywhere. So thanks, everybody. See you soon.